At the end of each year, you always see people putting out videos on some of the top baits or the top setups that they used for the year prior, looking in hindsight. So instead, on this video, I'm gonna be looking ahead and show you guys the top 5 setups that I think I'll be using for the 2025 season. Now, some of this is predicted based on either tournaments I'm gonna fish, plans that I may have, but also a lot of it is just gonna be manifesting what I want to do this year, things I wanna work on. Of course, there's gonna be some things bait-wise that come up throughout the year that I need to devote some time to work on, practice, things we try to do to learn more and be a better angler. As you guys know here on Be The Fish, I'm always striving to learn as well as have a good time. And as always, everything that we talk about in here is linked down below to Omnia Fishing. I'll leave all the details. If it's not an Omnia, I'll leave links to where you can go and find it. But if there is an Omnia link attached, you guys can use code SERIES10, save 10% off your order. So without further ado, I'm not gonna waste any more of your time because I appreciate the heck out of you guys for clicking on this video, taking time out to watch. So let's get into the first setup that I think I'll be using most in 2025. The first setup is one that I'm going to have almost every single time that I go fishing, simply for the fact that I always have a flipping jig ready to go. Whether it's for laydowns, it's for shallow rock, shallow grass, docks, any sort of cover. There's almost every single lake in the country you can throw a flipping jig and catch fish. So I always have one rigged up. Right now we got a little Beast Coast, a little Magnum tied on here. That's actually that new Omnia Fishing and Beast Coast color that they just came out with, a little special for Omnia. And what I have it on is absolutely my favorite rod to flip a jig. Went through several renditions of rods to find my favorite one, but this is by far my favorite and one that I'll definitely be loyal to for sure in the coming years. And this is a Fenwick Elite rod. They just came out a couple years ago and it is a 7-1 heavy fast. Definitely has a lot of backbone. We'll see if I can show you guys here a little bit. I don't know if you can see that, but a lot of backbone. Fast tip, one that you can really just drill home that hook. But also that 7-1 makes it super easy, especially in close quarters, to flip to certain spots, skip under hanging trees because it has that softer tip. Well, I said it has the backbone, it's got the softer tip to be able to skip pretty damn well too. And that's something I really look for, especially when I'm flipping a jig, skipping a jig around underhanging trees, under docks, things like that. You need to be able to have the control, but also have the power. And this is the perfect rod that I found to do exactly that. And with that, you need to have the right reel in tandem. I'm not the biggest Lew's reel kind of guy, but this is one I've actually really liked. It's their brand new Lew's Custom Pro. I really am a fan of the knobs that are on it. It's very small and compact. Put my whole hand around that reel. So again, going back to the fact of having total control, I like that I can have my whole hand covering the surface of that reel. So that profile helps big time. But also they designed this Custom Pro to be similar to that of like a Shimano MGL, something that is decent for throwing those lighter style baits, but also has an incredible line control. And so I got 17-pound Seaguar and VizX fluorocarbon on this, straight fluorocarbon. This is one heck of a jig flipping setup and is one that I'm gonna take with me everywhere, and you guys will likely see around the country wherever I'm going throughout my videos. This is one I'm confident to go throw, you know, the little Beast Coast, little Magnums, all the way to throwing a 3/4 ounce big jig, something that is a bigger presence. This setup will throw it all. Now, one that is a little bit newer to me, but I can already tell after using it a few times, is going to be my favorite chatterbait rod to be using. Because as you guys know, a chatterbait is still a lot of the rave, and good for good reason. We got that new Z-Man Evo chatterbait right here. I got that locked and loaded ready to go head south here soon. I've told you guys this before on recent video, but for a chatterbait, I really like to use a composite rod. I don't like the glass. I also don't like staying with graphite. I've found issues with both because I want feel, but I also like the delay in that glass rod where you can really drive that hook home and you don't lose as many fish. Whereas the graphite, for somebody like me that sets the hook faster, you lose some more fish, or you have the tendency to lose more fish. So this rod here is a perfect combination. This is actually the Arc Essence rod, full cork grip. And it's a 7.4 medium heavy, the 7.4 MHG. You can see it's almost built as if it's a glass rod. Once you get it in your hands, you can feel exactly what I'm talking about, where it almost feels like a glass cranking rod, but has that composite build to it to have a lot more feel, and loads perfectly, basically almost to about 6 guides down, but has incredible backbone on it. to drive that hook home. What I got paired up with it is a Shimano Corrado DC. That is the 150 size. I've been using that for a long time. You can tell it's almost worn off right there, the logo. And I have 15-pound Berkeley Trilene rigged up on that. Berkeley Trilene actually, even for how cheap it is a great cranking line. That setup, as you guys can see, hopefully we'll be using a lot as we head down south here, literally within the week. But also when we get back north, this one is going to see a lot of action in the spring too, which you guys will be seeing a bunch of videos of. Next, one that I was talking about manifesting, wishing and hoping that this is what I'll be using and catching a bunch of fish on. It's probably the best budget setup for throwing a big swim bait or a big glide bait. Now you can definitely go cheaper in the reel, but it's one that I felt like was important enough, especially for throwing those bigger baits. You need to have a reel that can also keep up with the rod. And so to start, this is a setup for, again, throwing glide baits. Obviously the little Spro KGB Chat is a little bit more on the lighter side of things, but one that can throw these baits a little bit heavier as well, and also the swim baits. You can also use this for some bigger A-rigs. This is a Dobyns Fury 795 SB. That's a 7.9 heavy swim bait rod. We got a Shimano Tranx. You can see it's starting to get some wear and tear on it. Actually, Arc sent these little thing. Cool shout out to Arc. They sent these little stickers here. I've done this actually with a label maker, but I always, with how many setups I have, I always put these little reminders of what line I do have on these rods and reel setup. That way when you're swapping reels on different rods, things like that, you don't get lost in translation of mixing up 17 for 15 and so on and so forth. But I got straight 20-pound fluorocarbon on this. It's a really nice long handle for folks that have not used the Dobyns swim bait rods or the 795, this Fury. Long handle, which really helps you with being able to cast that bait farther. The shorter handle, it's harder to cast those baits. So what it does is it allows you to have that leverage, you know, that gap between your hand here on the butt end and your hand on the reel, to have that leverage to really drive and cast that bait a far distance away. But even so with that too, it also helps you with accuracy. So big fan of this, and it's a super budget rod for the technique. So many people have raved about this Fury 795. And you can get it pretty dang cheap, especially when you use the code to Omnia Fishing Series 10 down below. If you find that any of this stuff is not in stock, you can actually click the button in Omnia to email you when things do come back in stock. That way you can be one of the first ones to the punch to make sure you get that on order. That is one I'm hoping I'm catching a bunch of fish on here this year. We got a bunch of different swim baits to try and catch some fish on this year, like this Throwback Baits Metro Glide. That pink lemonade's been kind of all the rave you've seen on social media. And you know, when things are being hyped up that much, you got to try it. And this is just a cool looking bait. So we'll be taking that, trying to catch some bass on it this year. And throwing it exactly on that setup for that Dobyns. All right, so we got 2 setups left. We got 1 casting left, and I do have a spinning setup for you folks. And the spinning setup is one that you guys know, forward-facing sonar, it is the rave. It is something I've used, especially if you tune into my channel. There's times of the year where these fish just go out and they roam and they chase bait, where it's not hard to catch fish shallow, but especially if you're fishing tournaments, there are winning fish offshore. It's one I do really enjoy. I've won tournaments doing it, and you can really have a lot of fun and learn a lot by doing so. And so with that, I do have a Jighead Minnow setup. I'll walk through with you guys because you've not seen this one yet. It's not one I've even used, but it's one that I'm predicting I will be using the most because I've switched some things up. We got a couple of these exact setups, which I'll walk through here in a second. That way I can have different options, but also this rod is very versatile, so it's not just a Jighead Minnow setup for me. But this is the Dobyns Champion XB, the 703 SF. It's basically a 7-foot medium fast spinning rod. Super universal. So I got multiple setups of this where I can throw a Nico rig, I can throw a wacky rig, you know, you could throw a shaky head, a Ned rig, anything you want basically you can throw on this Bad Mama Jamma. You really cannot go wrong with the Dobyns. They just make a great product. Hopefully it stays that way now that we're at GSM. So I tried to get these rods while I could, while there's still these same Dobyns, just in case something switches up. But I got that paired up with a Daiwa Tatula MQ, probably literally the best spinning reel I've ever used for the price. I think it's 180 bucks. The drag is incredible, smooth as butter. I've had one now on a different rod and reel setup for about 2+ years, and it's performed flawlessly. Has not had any issues whatsoever, still works just as the same as I got it out of the box. So I decided and went and bought a couple more from Omnia. I got that paired up with 8-pound Berkley forward braid. That is a forward-facing sonar braid. Essentially what it is, it's a sinking braid. Allows you to get those lighter baits down further in the water column faster. So you likely have seen all this with like the Sunline All Might that I have on other rod and reel setups. I'll actually show you guys right here. If you've seen anybody rocking that pink braid, that's that Sunline All Might. But Berkley has come out with their version, and I do love that neon chartreuse line. That's just a personal preference. So I got that rigged up to 8-pound straight fluorocarbon. What we have rigged up on this here head is one of my favorite forward-facing sonar heads, and that is the Queen Tackle Rollin' Strollin' head, and we got a Rapala Crush City Mooch Minnow there on the back. But that's a pretty dang effective head right there. And just like the jigs and everything else, I can throw a bunch of different style heads, heavier heads, lighter heads, different style baits, longer baits. I do have a setup that's intended for the longer and bigger strolling baits, but this one I feel is gonna get a lot of use this year. I know some of you guys don't like forward-facing sonar, and that's okay, because we have a lot of videos coming where we won't even have any sort of graph or technology on the boat. The only technology that'll be on the boat in a bunch of my videos this year will be my phone and the cameras. Now lastly, you're probably thinking, dude, none of these rods have freaking braid on them. Well, here you go. Last but not least, the 5th and final setup I have for you guys here is one that is also very versatile, one that I'm hoping to be using here down in Texas, as it's gonna be shallow. Some of these fish should be moving up. This is going to be a swim jig setup, but also could be for buzz baits, chatterbaits as well, especially some heavy vegetation. Anytime I need to wrench some of these fish out, we can flip with this stuff in some heavy bushes or grass. What we got on there right now, that's a 6th Sense Divine swim jig. Got a little cut down Rage Bug from Strike King there on the back. This is a Trica 6X casting rod. I actually really love the handles on these Tricas, but I've put this baby through the ringer in the past probably year. I think this past season I had it. Might have gotten it a year and a half ago. But either way, great rod option. They're not available on Omnia, but I will link them down below if you guys want to go look at them. It's a 7.3 medium heavy, a little bit more on the heavier side of a medium heavy, which makes it, in my mind, the perfect swim jig rod. Really love it for that application, but also one with, I could use for buzz baits, things like that, like I just detailed with you guys below, where it has enough bend in that to be able to get similar to like a chatterbait with a buzz bait. Sometimes you want that delay. I got 40-pound Seagar Smackdown braid on there, and then a Shimano SLX. It's a $100 reel, probably the best $100 reel that I have used. There's a new one I'll be showing you guys in the next video that's coming out that I'm actually really excited to try. That right there is one I'll be hoping to do a bunch with. I throw the swim jig a decent amount, but it's one that I definitely acknowledge I need to get better at, whether it's up shallow or even some heavier swim jigs out deep. And I'm guessing that setup is going to be getting a lot of work this year. So like I mentioned, these setups are looking ahead at the 2025 season, things I want to be throwing, things I predict that I'll be throwing the most, but chances are these can change. So what we'll do is at the end of the 2025 season, we'll do a top 5 setups on what we did end up using, kind of reflect on that, what was true, what was not true, what we ended up using, and what we didn't. These are all great options of budget reels, some budget rods, some of them with $100 to some of them being up in that $300 range, like the Dobbins Champion XP or Shimano Tranks. But for the most part, everything I showed you guys was within that $100 to $200 range. And especially when you use the codes and you take advantage of the sales over at Omnia, you can get these stuff pretty affordable. And like I said at the beginning, every single setup will be detailed down below in the YouTube description for you guys. So you can head over to Omnia, grab them if you'd like. And if you have any questions on each of them, drop them in the comments down below, DM me on social media. I'd be happy to talk through some of these with you guys. I know there's a bunch that have sent me DMs asking for recommendations. I encourage that. Happy to help anytime, whether it's in the comments, in the DMs, in the email, whichever have you. And lastly, what I'll leave you guys with, I appreciate you as always taking time to watch this video, taking time out of your day to watch this. So I encourage you, please like it. Subscribe to the channel if you're not already. And for my folks that are going down to the Bassmaster Classic down in Texas, shoot me a DM, drop a comment down below. We'll be there with the whole Serious Angler crew. Looking forward to that, as we'll be fishing the Bassmaster Kayak Championship on Lake Fork. So starting next week, you're gonna start seeing a bunch of content, especially on my social media, coming from Tennessee. We're gonna go fish with Rudd, a couple other folks down that way, and then we have a bunch of videos coming from fishing in Texas, like a lot of videos coming. Really looking forward to it. We're gonna go be chasing a fish of a lifetime and hopefully chasing a natty dub on Lake Fork. We're gonna be trying to get on that podium in the Bassmaster Classic stage, but looking forward to seeing everyone down in the DFW for the Bassmaster Classic. You guys are incredible. Appreciate y'all, and we'll see you on the next one. Peace.